tonight from the Talladega Super Speedway. LSRTV along with you to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 8th race on this, the 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. Tonight is Dega night as we continue a couple of weeks of non-stop action here on your home for sim racing at iRacing Live. It is Lincoln, Alabama, the host of this 8th race on the 2018 campaign. And as we get set to go super speedway racing for the second time on the year, as always, we're happy that you're with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. Upstairs, myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside with Brian Macklin in the LSRTV booth. Cisco Scarbus is downstairs, and he's got a headset. Might hear from him a little bit as the night goes on. But Brian, we've been talking about short tracks for a couple of weeks, coming off of Richmond, coming off of Bristol, coming off of Martinsville. It is a completely different animal here tonight as we go racing on the 2.66-mile beast that is simply known as Talladega.
It's a completely different animal, but it is, in my opinion, the land of opportunity, because this is a track where truly anybody in this field has an opportunity to win. We saw on Saturday in the Xfinity Series, Spencer Gallagher got his first career win in the Xfinity Series, and not only that, but he also got his one lap led. He's only led one lap in his entire career, and it was the one taking the checkered flag. And that just goes to show you, you don't have to have the speed in the car every single week, or even throughout the entire race here tonight to have a chance to win. You just have to be in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly what he did. And that might be what somebody does here tonight at Talladega.
Going to be a critical night in the championship. A long way to go to the playoffs, yes, but this is the third to last race in our Segment 1 Points Championship. The top 3 finishers get their share of $300 in prize money, and Brandon Bowie, with a win a week ago, moves himself up to second in the championship standings coming into tonight. David Washington leads by 9 points. Back to Bowie. Seth the Merchant occupies the third spot. Your winner in the points through these first 10 weeks will get $150, $100 to second, and $50 to third in the points. So that is a little bit to fight for as the season goes on. But we are set to go racing from Talladega. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSRTV starting grid. Speaking of Brandon Bowie, he's on a pole tonight. The 52.041 is best of all of them. The 43 will bring us to the green flag, accompanied by the 17 of Michael Carrillia, who rolls off in second. Andrew Farinars and Seth the Merchant going to make up row number 2. The Merchant in search of a first win on 2018. He's the highest driver of the points without one. He's on the outside of that row at 4th, and just behind them, the 2 of Colby Buck starts in 5th.
Starting in the 6th position here tonight, Dylan Jones starts in the 6th spot. Then we have Rodney Walford starting in 7th. Dwight Beverly will start 8th. Michael Cozy Jr. starts 9th. And rounding out the top 10, Mike Taylor will start P10 here tonight.
Back on row 6, 11th spot goes to Daniel Everhart. He'll start alongside Spencer Preet, who's in the 12th position. Again, Luke Gideon and Scott Walter will make up row 7. They start 13th and 14th position, respectively. Eric Stanford, Randy Yoakum, 15th and 16th. They're back on row 8. You take a look at row number 9. It's going to be 17th position, Ross Cato. 18th, Brian Chambliss. And on row 10, inside P19, Tommy Ron. Outside P20, Lionel Callisto.
Nick Silver is going to start from the 21st position here tonight. Then we have Austin Coop starting P22. David Comstock will start from that 23rd position. Then we have Daniel Falkingham starting 24th. Kyle Kamer starts 25th. Then we have Shane Ewing in the 26th position. Shane Parrish starts 27th. Sean Casto starts 28th. Dwayne Vincent is 29th. And Gabe Wood starts 30th.
And round out the field here tonight, 31st position on the starting grid is the number 4 of Braden Whitaker. Drew Adamson way back in 32nd spot. David Washington will roll off in 33rd. And slowest on the time charts in qualifying, Jeff Ward will round out your field of 34 cars all the way from the top to the bottom. 0.7 of a second separate the fastest from the slowest. Every single car on track taking a time to qualifying tonight. And as the field begins to roll, we'll get the cameras back up towards the front in just a moment. But if you've been tuned in with us on a weekly basis, Brian, you might notice a little bit of a different look for Gabe Wood, different number and a different paint scheme, and a story behind that, why Gabe Wood's mixing it up a little bit here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. This past weekend, unfortunately, the world of motorsports lost a true icon. James Harvey Hilton and his son, James Harvey Hilton Jr., were tragically lost in a car accident this past Saturday in Alabama. James Hilton was a 2-time winner in the Monster Energy Cup Series and a longtime series competitor in the ARCA Racing Series. James also holds the record for being the oldest competitor in one of NASCAR's top 3 series when he competed in the Camping World Truck Series race at Pocono in 2011 at the age of 76. Gabe Wood, as we just mentioned, he personally knew James and his family from the ARCA Racing Series, and as a special tribute, Gabe is running the paint scheme and the number 48 that James ran when he won his last race in NASCAR, the 1972 Talladega 500. Everyone here at LSRTV would like to extend our thoughts and prayers to the Hilton family, along with everyone in the racing community.
It was really nice to see Gabe Wood do it and paying some tribute here tonight in the Full Throttle Real-Estate Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. So maybe if you don't have a specific driver or a team that you're rooting for, you can hope that 48 machine can get the job done tonight. Gabe Wood's going to have a lot of work cut out for him as he starts back in 30th position. But a tip of the cap to Gabe Wood for sure for running that tribute paint scheme. And of course, I'll echo the thoughts as well, Brian, you just gave that all of us are thinking of the Hilton family in this difficult time. We are, though, excited to go racing tonight from Talladega Super Speedway. Should be a fun night of racing here in the Super Speedway, on the Super Speedway second one we have had in these opening 8 weeks. And of course, you're not going to see this many throughout the rest of the calendar in such a short period. The pace car is down and in. And as always, we are happy that you're with us at a Monday evening. Brandon Bowie with a win at a very short track just a week ago from Richmond. He's looking to take over the points lead and try to challenge for the Segment 1 Points Championship. He's got to survive tonight if he wants to have a shot into the final 2 races of the segment. And we're getting a green flag racing from Talladega underway in the Talladega 99. Actually, a better jump for the outside as we get these cars through the gears and up to speed for the first time with Bowie and Guerrilla side by side. First time in 1 and 2.
Yeah, Guerrilla got a pretty good start, but he did not have any help behind him as they were trying to get up to speed right there. Seth DeMerchant just was not able to get up to speed with him, so Brandon Bowie is going to inch ahead on the bottom of the racetrack. There is only 2 cars lined up on the outside line versus almost the entire field on the bottom as they work down the backstretch for the first time. Takes almost a full lap for these cars to get up to full song. They're almost 190 miles an hour already as they head off into turn 3, and it is a single file train on the bottom with Guerrilla on the outside trying to make something happen as they come off turn 4.
Doing everything he can to make something happen up on the outside of the racetrack. Of course, that's not where you want to be early on in these races. Restarting on the outside, difficult in any situation. But of course, early in this one, when the folks up on the outside maybe aren't as inclined to be very aggressive out of the gate, everybody's trying to duck down in line, and that's why you see everybody basically, besides Zanani of Everhart, has gone down to the inside of the racetrack. So Guerrilla is going to try to find a spot in line. He'll successfully do so. Seth DeMerchant left enough space in between he and the 2 of Colby Buck. So 17 is going to stop the bleeding. It's going to cost him about 3-4 positions, although it could have been a lot worse as we see single file, the name of the game. All but 1 car top 10 down on the bottom.
And that's a lonely place for Daniel Eberhardt out there on the outside line right now. Nobody up there to work with him, and unfortunately, you're seeing the negative effect of that as he finally gets in line on the bottom. But when you get stuck out on the outside line like he was, you just go backwards almost immediately. The air just does not want to work with you, and you just lose all the momentum that you might have had. And unfortunately, that's what happens, and that's why we saw Michael Guerrilla in the 17 very quickly try to find a spot in the bottom. He realized that outside line wasn't going to be the place to be at this point of the race, so he very quickly made that effort to get to the bottom so he didn't lose a handful more positions. He easily could have lost 15 to 20 positions because right now the entire top 20, it looks like maybe even more, have gotten to the bottom and went single file. And now this is where things become very difficult, Evan, because if somebody wants to pull out to try to make that outside line work, they have to know they're going to have help to go with them, otherwise they're going to get trained to the back.
That's the key. Is Talladega, you mentioned a very good opportunity per se for drivers to be able to compete at a race here where maybe they don't have that same speed on a week-by-week basis, but you need help. And it just always tends to be the drivers who are part of the bigger teams in this Full Throttle Real-Estate Racing Cup Series who are able to perform on that week-by-week basis, but having that teammate assistance is never as important as it is here on a plate track like Talladega. So when you have drivers kind of lone wolves per se, it's very difficult to do anything without help. Now, maybe earlier on in a race, Brian, 4 laps at a 99 per se, you might have drivers being a little bit more generous, but it is a big gamble to go up to the outside of the racetrack because if you go up there and nobody else bites, or even if you do get a couple of cars up top but it doesn't work, that is a long fall to the back of the pack. I am seeing a couple of drivers want to go up top. That's towards the back of the pack, though, because when you're single file, you're not making up any positions, and those drivers who are in the high teens to mid-20s, you do not want to be stuck back there for any longer than you got to be.
Well, the thing about it is everybody's going to be single file right now, but at some point some of these drivers are going to begin to get a little bored. They're not going to want to ride single file behind everybody. Eventually these guys are going to want to get racy and try to make something happen to go to the front and have a little bit of fun, a little bit of excitement, not only for us to be calling, but for them to have on the racetrack. So this is going to be a short-lived thing, in my opinion. I have a feeling you're going to see some of these guys towards the back half of this field begin to try to strategize together, maybe have their spotters talk to one another and try to figure out a way to organize an outside line. And when that happens, you might actually see something begin to happen. But at this point, when you've got this many cars lined up on the bottom, you're going to need 6, 7, maybe 8 cars lined up together at the same time in order to make anything happen to go to the front.
One car way up on the outside of the racetrack inside of the top couple of positions. Looks like that's the 81 division of Mike Taylor, who has gotten himself shuffled up out of line just a little bit. Started this race in 10th position, but there's the risk that I was talking about, Brian. You go up top and nobody's going to be jumping or chomping at the bit per se to give you a free ticket back into line. Now he'll be caught by those drivers who are on the outside and all on their own. Look at the 42 machine actually not wanting to work with him. How about that? Comstock trying to go to the inside. I figured they'd want some extra assistance, but Comstock's actually going to tuck back in line to the inside, so to leave the 81 back in a double file position. At this point, though, again, still maybe every man for himself. You do not want to get sent to the back. Yes, there is a long way to go. Yes, we're going to have pit stops and probably yellow flags at race starts, and those are going to be the determining critical points in this race. But anytime you can get rip that band-aid off per se early, get a lot of spots early, it's exactly what you want, but single file makes it very difficult for somebody to orchestrate that.
It does, but we see 2 cars that have jumped over the outside. They are trying to make something happen. That's Nick Silver in the 24 and Daniel Falkingham in the 1. They have moved up to the outside line, and as quickly as I say that, Falkingham goes back to the bottom. But that was because they just weren't able to get anything going. The 2 of them jumped up there simultaneously to try to see if they could make the outside line work, and as soon as they got up there, their run stalled out, and they had to find a spot back in line almost immediately. And now you see David Comstock get in line behind Nick Silver, trying to make the outside line work. The problem is they just don't have enough cars. There's only 2 of them now, 3 of them trying to make it happen against almost the entire field on the bottom. You're still going to need 4, 5, maybe 6 more cars before you're going to see anything happen. And now they tuck back in on the bottom. You see Nick Silver still trying to make something happen. He is bound and determined he's going to get that outside line going, and if he stays this determined, eventually it's going to pan out for him.
And no doubt once you get a couple of cars up on the outside, you are going to be quicker than the cars down low. These cars, the Cup Series cars, that is, do not draft maybe as well as, say, the Xfinity Series machines or the trucks for sure. However, it is still true to a point that if you're going to be riding single file on the inside, you are not full throttle, no pun intended, all the way around the racetrack. It does involve a lot of give and take. You got to be letting off, make sure that you keep some space, and you get those dangerous accordion effects that can really catch you in the blink of an eye. So if you get a couple of cars up top, you can make some moves. How many moves you're going to be able to make? Look at the move on the outside. That 90 of Everhart thinking about it. Went high, maybe testing the waters. Spencer Preet looked like he was maybe willing to go. So the drivers 9th and 10th in line may not be uniforming to the status quo. They stay down low this time at 1 and 2. But again, at any moment, somebody can go to the outside. And as long as you have other drivers willing to go with you, this thing could crack wide open just like that.
There's about 5 guys in the back right now that are beginning to form that outside line. Austin Coop just jumped up in front of Nick Silver, so now you've got him, Nick Silver, David Comstock up there as well. They're very tightly packed together right now, working well together. And then there's a couple of other stragglers that actually just dropped to the bottom of the racetrack, so we're back down to 3. But that's the problem right there that you have. You have to have guys that are committed to making the outside line work, and if they bail out, it kills any type of run that you might have been building. And right there, when that happened, those guys were beginning to have a little bit of momentum on the outside line, but the problem is as soon as they have those couple of stragglers in the back bail out, their momentum went away, and now they're starting to lose ground again. So this is a very tough situation to be in, and it can be very frustrating. If you're a guy like Austin Coop or Nick Silver or even David Comstock, you keep putting your nose out there, you keep trying to make something happen, but you just can't get anywhere. You really begin to get frustrated and try to find something to go. And now here comes Lionel Callisto jumping up, and it looks like maybe Daniel Everhart again. He just keeps sticking that nose out there, but he just keeps going back to the bottom.
Almost like sticking his thumb out as he's trying to hitchhike a ride. He's letting those guys behind him know if you get up here, you've got somebody who's willing to go with you. Again, I think the 90 and the 37 might make a move to the outside. Kalisto's right on their doorstep. If you're going to do it now. Even in front of them, look at Michael Guerrilla in the 17 again. Not necessarily forming that second line, but stepping out a half a lane. It also never hurts as you see the 37 go high, and the 97 of Kalisto almost got turned. The 6 got him in the left rear quarter panel, Brian, really loose there in the tri-oval. That was almost bad, and the 37 machine of Preet tucks back in line. That really hurt the momentum of the cars up at the outside of the racetrack, but they want to go. Everhart keeps jumping up, saying, let's do this. So a lot of that could be drivers just trying to get some clean air to the nose. You could also see that 12 of Cato, though, going bottom to top. There's definitely a movement here as that outside line is finally gone up to the top 10.
Yeah, they are beginning to make a little bit of progress because they have a few cars working together that are staying tightly packed together and actually working really well together and beginning to make some moves. The problem is, once again, they still just need a couple more cars. Looks like we have one driver that jumped out to the outside line. I believe that was Michael Guerrilla. Yes, it was. He jumped out of line. He actually had a pretty good run. He's going to pull up door to door with the third place driver, but if you look behind him, that line that is forming on the outside line is about 10 cars back, so they're not going to be any help to him at this point. And you can see him trying to hug onto the right side of the inside line of that number 2 machine, just trying to pull any type of side draft or any kind of draft at all to keep himself up there so that he doesn't begin to drop back and lose a lot of momentum. But it's not working very well as he has dropped back. He's no longer beside Dylan Jones. Now he's beside Colby Buck, and before long he's going to be even further back if he doesn't get anybody up there. And now he's going to drop in line in front of Seth Demerson. Looks like Seth is going to let him back in to give him an opportunity to get back up to speed.
Big problems for the 19 of Eric Sanford, sorry. Not sure if he had to drop back by admin, an admin directive, or if he was just trying to get out of the way, but it looked like he had some minor connection problems. He dropped down to the inside of the racetrack and went back. That's the second time we've seen that. The 81 machine, Mike Taylor, was also told by the admins that he was having a little bit of issues to drop back and get out of the pack. Anytime you have any sort of a connection issue in sim racing, it is not fun, but at Talladega, it can be a little bit extra dangerous, so the admins have the ability to ask the drivers to drop to the back or simply penalize them until whatever minor issue has been resolved. So those two drivers choose the easy route, cooperate, and drop back. And all of that, though, having a battle for the race lead, maybe the 2 of Colby Buck, the 17 of Michael Guerrilla, both drivers to the outside of the racetrack. First bit of side-by-side we've really seen inside of the top 5 since the very start of this race 13 laps ago. Well, the 2 machine hasn't been able to pick up anything, but he's not losing either side draft with only 2 cars up top. Going to be a big factor, and if these guys up top lose or gain some ground, I think the 2 wants the 17 to get a little bit closer on him as he kind of shakes the car a little bit in the center of the corner. We'll see what they can do down the Alabama gang back straight away.
This is what I was talking about towards the beginning of the race. These guys started getting bored riding around on the bottom of the racetrack, running single file. They wanted to make something happen, so finally Colby Buck, Michael Guerrilla said enough is enough, and they moved to the outside line together, and they started to make progress, but once again, just not enough help to really go anywhere. They're battling against 6 cars on the bottom right now, and the line that is behind them is just not quite close enough to really contribute to their run. And now, as you see, Michael Guerrilla had to bail out and go back to the bottom of the racetrack. That leaves Colby Buck out there by himself, but he's got help on the way finally, as here comes that outside line led by Daniel Everhart, and now Michael Guerrilla back up top, and they're finally going to be close enough, and this might be the first opportunity we've seen at the front of the pack to see what these guys can do on the outside line. There's about 7 cars on the outside to maybe 10 on the bottom. This is going to be a pretty good battle once these guys get closer to the front.
And as we get into about the middle portions of a run 2, this is your best opportunity to put the elbows up and get after it. The Donnie machine has joined this group, as you mentioned. The 6 of Austin Coop up there as well. The 12 of Ross Cato. So all of these drivers are ones that have been flirting with the outside of the racetrack a little bit, and it's been very difficult for them to make up a significant amount of time from that far and back in the pack, obviously with only the push. But once the 2 and the 17 jumped up, almost the ability to suck up to the cars in front of them, and we'll see how long this outside line can stick around. They're doing a good job. The 2 machine of Colby Buck maybe get a challenge for second this time off of the corner. The outside line is just having trouble sticking together, and if you get a challenge those guys at the inside who are packed in there like sardines, you gotta stay tight on each other's bumper.
Well, the other problem is they had a line formed up with about 7 or 8 cars, and now it's down to just 3. You've got Colby Buck, Michael Guerrilla, and Daniel Eberhardt up there, but everybody else that was working with them, Austin Coop, Comstock, Nick Silver, all those drivers that were working with them, they bailed out to the bottom of the racetrack, and so now we're back into the same situation we were before, and unless they get some help, these 3 cars are going to start fading backwards, and they already have been. They had gotten as far as up to the second place car, and now they're back to Seth DeMerchant, who's 4th on the bottom. They're continuing to try to fight on the outside line, pinching down that inside line, and trying to get as much side draft as they can off of these drivers, but it's going to be so difficult for these guys to really be able to make anything happen if they can't get a line established that's going to stick with them, and that's unfortunately just been very hard to come by at this point, as these guys are pretty much bottom feeders right now at this point of the race.
And you have to know that this is how races at Talladega are going to play out. We can tell you all we want that, qualifying's not that important, and there is a sliver of truth to that. Again, if there's any racetrack that you can make up 20 or so positions at, it is this one. It is unlike any other, of course, if you include Daytona in that same category. But in these early runs is where obviously that track position is ever so important. A majority of the drivers who started inside of the top 10 still ride inside of the top 10, all with the exception of Dwight Beverly. Well, he's only, to be fair, dropped to 13th position. Mike Taylor was sent back after starting 10th for that internet issue that we discussed earlier. So if you exclude that, only one driver who started top 10 is outside of the top 10. He's only 3 positions back in 13th. So obviously track position very key. Not something that you really talk about a lot at Talladega now. It's when you get into the restarts, Brian, and the shuffling to the pit strategy and so on and so forth is when you obviously have more opportunities to pass off of restarts. But races at plate tracks have been known to go green for good amounts of times, good distances, even sometimes through green flag pit stops. And being in that lead group, if you were to come down pit road under green flag conditions, is really where all of that track position pays off from qualifying, because that's when we start to see things disintegrate a little bit. This is still really one big pack. First position all the way through 28 are separated by just 2.5 seconds. If you were to go through pit stops, you'd probably see a group of 8 cars and a group of 7 cars and so on and so forth. So right now we're still one big group, but obviously being with a fast collective of race cars, by the time you maybe get 40 laps into this race or so and come down pit road, that's really where the track position could pay off. And we'll see if that Colby Buck can do anything. He's been outside for 5 to 6 laps by now. He's right there. Needs a little bit extra if he wants to get all the way around the 43 of Bowie, who's led since the green.
This has been a pretty impressive drive for these 3 cars. I have to admit, I did not expect them to stay up inside the top 5 like they have right now and be able to get this close to challenging for the race lead. But they're doing something that has been very hard to do in this Cup car. They're actually getting almost locking bumpers with this Cup car, and with this draft package, that is almost impossible to do with these guys out here at Talladega and Daytona. You can do it in the Xfinity car, you can even do it in the truck, but with this car, it is extremely difficult to get that close and to be able to push. And if you can get that close, it almost takes the lead car dragging the brakes to fall back to you to actually be able to lock those bumpers together. And once you can do that, you can actually carry a lot of momentum, and that's what I've been seeing these guys attempt to do just a little bit. I believe maybe Colby Buck is dragging that brake just a little bit, allowing for Guerrilla to get on his bumper, and when they do that, they lock bumpers, they can pick up a little bit of speed, and it has helped them to stay up here at the front of the field. And now here we go, a challenge for the race lead. Second place has gotten tired of being on the bottom. Andrew Freenars jumps in front of Colby Buck, and we have a side-by-side battle for the lead, and I believe at the straight, Freenars is going to get it. Now, will he stay on the outside, or will he drop down in front of Bowie? He's going to drop down and take the race lead away here on lap 21.
Beautiful move by Andrew Freenars to go to the race lead at lap number 21. And we see our first lead change of the afternoon. Of course, it was at the completion of lap 20 where Freenars was able to lead that lap. And the 2-sheet Colby Buck kind of got used up on that one, Brian, but that's exactly what you need to do if you're Freenars. You had the combination of 2 things working for you. 1, you jumped up to the outside of the racetrack. You had the 2 of Colby Buck pushing you. But 2, if you were our at-time race leader, Bowie, therefore there was no car behind you. You essentially had to slide back a whole car length, and the combination of Freenars getting the push and you sinking it back that 12 feet or so allowed the 88 to just get enough space to clear into the corner.
And he timed that beautifully, because he did that going into the tri-oval, and he was able to get clear and get back to the bottom of the racetrack before they got to turn one. And that was exactly how you want to do it if you're in Andrew Freenar's position. He couldn't have timed that much better, in my opinion, because like you said, he had the run coming from the outside. He took away the draft from Brandon Bowie, and then it just worked into his favor. He was able to get clear and take the race lead. The problem is he just showed his hand very early in this race, and now Brandon Bowie could be thinking to himself, well, I can do that to him again. If he times that run coming off of turn 4, like right now, if he pulled up in front of Colby Buck in the 2 machine right now, he could do the exact same thing. But the problem is Colby was able to get a pretty good run off the corner, and he's drew to the right rear quarter panel of Brandon Bowie, so it's going to be very difficult for him to do that. And unfortunately, he's going to have to stay on the bottom of the racetrack now and not really be able to challenge for that race lead. But I'm still very impressed that these 3 cars have been able to stay lined up and stay this close to the front of the field. I really believe that they would have been trained to the back, but they've done a really good job at this point of the race.
And you can see in the corner is, especially how tight they're getting on those cars at the inside. It is obviously key, as you mentioned, how close they're able to get to one another's bumper. And we've been talking already a couple of times tonight how difficult it is to do in these Gen 6 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series cars. But watching the corner, you see the white hash marks all the way around the racetrack. They'll enter the turn basically all the way up above that, in the middle of the road. And as you get off of the corner, they start to creep down a little bit by little bit. And that side draft's a big factor. Looks like Seth the Merchant feels like the outside's got some potential here. He'll split up the duo that started all of this. He tucks in behind Buck and in front of Michael Guerrilla. Those were the 2 from inside of the top 5 who went up top and really gave this outside line some real life. The 3 machine's going to fill the hole, so Wofford now becomes the 4th car in line on the inside of the racetrack. So we'll see if DeMerchant gives it outside any extra booth. Again, the inside line still has more cars, still has more momentum, so you have to compensate with that. If you're on the outside, it'd be a little bit more aggressive.
Well, they have a big situation coming up right now as they're working around a lap car here, and now you see everybody having to go around him on the outside of the racetrack right now. That's going to crowd the outside line up a little bit, and everybody does a great job working around the number 82 machine here as they try to go around Drew Adamson to put him down a lap. And actually, I believe, yeah, he is going to be going down just 1 lap, but a very tight moment for these guys, and that is something that can be very tricky, because if the guys on the outside line aren't paying attention, or if they decide they're not going to give room to the guys on the bottom, it can become very disastrous for those guys on the bottom of the racetrack, and eventually could be for the entire field. So very good job for everybody right there to get around the lap car cleanly and without causing any issues. But what it did do, if you look back through this field, we got a nice little outside line beginning to form up, because there's about 8, 9, maybe 10 cars that have lined up on the outside line now, and as a result of that, this line is really beginning to build some steam, and they're starting to get closer to the front of the field as here comes Colby Buck once again trying to fight with the number 43 machine of Brandon Bowie, and now he's, I believe, side by side with Dylan Jones in that 3rd spot.
And Dylan Jones is somebody who's been pretty quiet as well, Brian. We talked a lot about how the outside, not a very fun place to be at the very start of a race. Well, he started 6th, but very quickly made that move down low. I think, obviously, the objective for the cars at the outside was to find a spot in line. Some of them hung out there a little bit, maybe tested the waters for a lap or 2 to see just how many drivers were actually sticking around up on the outside of the racetrack. He went right down low, and it's paid off, because not that he hasn't been passing cars, he has, but by essentially getting down in line and staying in line, he's gained 3 positions. Look at the 43 of Bowie now, trying to pay back the 88 of Farinars, but he made that move going into the corner, not the best spot for it, so that hole behind the race leader's already filled up, and Bowie's going to lead the outside, but it's not going to be as easy as a pass as what Farinars put on him. He should have a good shot here, though, if the 2 car gives him a good push.
Yeah, I mean, the timing on that move was not that great, but he still got a pretty good run. He's actually going to lead up the stripe. He's going to have the opportunity to possibly take the lead away when they get down into turn 1, but he's not going to be able to get clear of the 88 machine to get to the bottom of the racetrack, so he remains stuck on the outside with Colby Buck pushing. The problem with doing that into the corner is you are already going to be losing momentum, because you're going into the high banks of the corner, and it kills the momentum of the car as it is. Now you're also trying to move lanes and try to establish momentum on the outside line. You're just not able to do it as well. The way that Andrew Freenars did it, going into the tri-oval and taking away that momentum in such a short period of time, that was the exact move that you needed to make. Either that or do it coming off of the corner. Like if he did it coming off of turn 2 down the backstretch, that move also probably would have worked right there, but doing it into the corner is not going to work.
Yeah, and something I just noticed, guys, you know, we had Drew Adamson who was staying on the bottom when the pack went by, and to your point, Brian, to where it's going to be harder to go up to the top side to make that outside line work. This split up that huge pack we had beforehand, and as a result, you can see the guys kind of straining out on the outside, but the entire pack is all sort of split up now. We basically have 3 mini packs of what used to be 1 large pack, so it's going to make things a little bit tougher for the guys on the outside. Less cars to work with you, though. If you can get some teammates up there to help you, I mean, between the 17, the 6, the 57, some of those guys, maybe some more of the Super Speedway Cup guys, maybe get those guys up on the top side to help you push. That might get you something on the top side, but apart from that, it's just not working out for them. This pack's going to have to rejoin if maybe they get a few more guys to go with them on the outside or make something happen up there.
And if everybody was in agreement, Brian, on what the strategy call was going to be, we wouldn't have to worry about drivers falling back and an inside and an outside line not working. If you're with teammates, and this goes back to what I was talking about very early on, team car is very easy to communicate. You're all in the same radio channel as one another, and you're all going to be on the same strategy, same ideas. You are going to need, at points, unless you're really lucky, and hey, sometimes it happens if you're somebody like Aegis and you've got a ton of teammates, then listen, you're in a pretty good position. But for most teams, sometimes you're not going to be around your 2-3 other teammates. You're going to have to work with other cars, and if you're not on the radio with them, it's going to be very difficult to communicate, hey, we need to work together and do this. That's why a lot of drivers were kind of sneaking up to the outside, trying to show the cars around them, if you want to go, I'm on board with that, and that's kind of the body language of the race car.
Well, and Daniel Eberhardt, as you just mentioned, he was doing that at the beginning of this race. He was going up in the backstretch, and he was signaling to these guys, look, I'm willing to jump up here. If you guys get enough cars lined up, if you get some momentum established, I'm willing to go with you. And when that line finally got established, and when they finally had the momentum that he was looking for, he went with them for a handful of laps. And that's what you have to do. Unfortunately, as a driver, as you mentioned, when you're not with one of those powerhouse teams, when you're not with a team that has that many drivers, or if you're not around your teammates, you have to be able to find different ways to make friends out there, and that's one of the ways to do it. The other way, in my opinion, has always been just to jump up there. If you see somebody that's trying to make the move work, like we saw Michael Guerrilla doing earlier in the race, you try to get up there and you're not really getting anybody to go with you, finally just jump up there with him. If I was behind him at that point, I would have jumped up there with him even if we went to the back, because I wanted to show him, look, I'm willing to work with you. I want to make that friend so I have somebody at the end of the race that I know I can trust to possibly draft with and maybe give me a shot to win.
Something else we have to keep in mind, talking about 99 laps total distance tonight from Talladega, around this 2.66 miles super speedway. That means we're racing tonight for 263 miles between the drop of the American Ethanol green flag and the checkered flag later on this evening. Brian, we're 31 laps into this race, so just a smidge shy of the halfway point. How's tire and fuel strategy more specifically factoring into maybe how these guys are driving at this juncture?
Well, tires shouldn't be an issue in this race here tonight. I don't think you'll see anybody have any issues. I do believe when they come to pit road, and I believe it looks like we might have some green flag pit stops here in the next handful of laps, you're going to see these guys at least take 2 tires. Probably they may even go for 4 tires, because needing a full tank of gas, you're going to be sitting in your pit box long enough to go ahead and get the tires. You might as well take advantage of it and get those tires anyway. But I don't think you're going to see them be a factor to the point where somebody that doesn't take tires is going to be at a handling disadvantage. I think they're going to be okay if they elect to go for 2 tires or no tires, but you can see these guys have begun to think about that, and I think they realize they're within about 10 laps or so of needing to get to pit road, so they're beginning to get themselves lined up and get themselves ready to come to pit road. And this is also now very important timing where you need to be around your friends. You need to know that you've got your teammates nearby, and you need to know when everybody's going to be pitting. You need to have your spotter out there communicating with each other, trying to figure out when the guy in front of you is coming to pit road, so you can try to establish something to come to pit road together. That way, when you come off the pits, you have somebody to draft with and you're not out there all by yourself.
And is it also true to a certain extent that you need cars on pit road with you? Yes, but too many cars on pit road can cause some headaches, because one of the most difficult things about plate track racing, I think, is getting these cars down from 190 miles an hour coming off of turn 4 onto pit road safely. Oftentimes they spread them wide 3 and 4, and it does not end well when you have those green flag pit stops. Ironically enough, Brian, it's not something that you see drivers practice a whole lot. And listen, everybody in this Full Throttle Real Estate Racing Cup Series are veteran drivers in these cars on the service, but it can always trip you up at a moment's notice.
And you're right. To your point, you don't want to have too many cars coming on the pit road at one point. Like, I'm looking at this front pack, and there's about 15 guys in this front pack right now, 17 guys to be exact in this front pack. I don't want to come on pit road under green flag conditions with all 17 of them. If I'm out there and I'm in the middle of this pack, I'm going to try to find 4 or 5 guys that I know I can trust to get on and off pit road cleanly together, and I'm going to say, look, we're going to pit on this lap, and we're going to try to work together. When I race these races with my teammates, and I know we're going to have green flag pit stops, that's one thing that we have always tried to establish. We try to figure out a way to come to pit road together, but away from the rest of the field, even if it means trying to pit a lap early or a lap later than everybody else, and take that chance that we might lose a little bit of time on speed. We want to make sure that we get on and off pit road cleanly, that way we don't have any issues.
Maybe drivers starting to think about some of that pit strategy, just like we have been talking about, because that outside line has kind of faded away just a little bit. They were up there challenging for the race lead, and now, of course, everybody has gotten themselves down single file. Key trick to getting down pit road without causing a big wreck is to not do it from the racetrack, already 2 and 3 wide. And as we're now a third of the way through tonight's Talladega 99, single file all the way through the lead pack, which stretches all the way back to 17th spot.
And something else to note, guys, we talked about it when it came to Daytona, and we've mentioned it throughout the season, but remember, this is a different format for when they come down pit road that we have in this build. Because of the animated pit crews, you're basically margin for error when it comes to the pit box much smaller than it used to be. It makes it a lot easier to overshoot your box. We've seen it at a lot of tracks this season, but chief among which is going to be here at Talladega because of how much speed you're carrying down pit road and even just carrying onto pit road as well. The other thing to look out for is, of course, going to be tire lockup. Well, I'm not sure we're going to see guys take 4 tires necessarily on this stop, but if you lock up those tires, you may as well.
We said that the lead group, Brian, was 17 cars. That second group has gotten a lot smaller. That's because a lot of them came down pit road. Your lead 17 are still intact, but they may be down shortly. Split this race into thirds, make 2 pit stops if it were to stay green. We'll see if they react to that second group pitting as they headed to 3 and 4.
And we actually had some issues coming on to pit road for that group of cars that came to pit road. Galen Gidman and I believe the number 98 of David Washington got into each other when they were trying to get on to pit road. And that's what we were talking about, how you want to come in on a smaller group and with cars that you know you can trust. Coming off of the track, it looks like actually the number 94 of Galen Gidman got hit from behind by the number 4 machine of Braden Whittaker, and that sent him sideways into the number 98 of David Washington. Did not bring a caution out because they were both on the apron of the racing of the track when it happened, but it cost them both severe time, and it gave the number 94 machine a ton of damage, and you're seeing the replay on your screen right now of that incident coming on the pit road.
You can also see, right before we cut to that, the cars who had just completed pit service down slow on the apron. Goes to show you it cost you about a lap of this 2.66 mile super speedway to come down pit road and get serviced. So one of the risks of the short pit is you could lose a lap. Race leaders are in. Here we go. Andrew Farinar is going to dive down. Dylan Jones in as well. It's about a 50-50 split in that lead group. Farinars, Jones, Eberhardt in. And that's going to be the lead group. Looks like only 3 actually from that. All the guys up front. And then the rest of that 17 said, no, we're going to stay out. So new race leader Rodney Wofford from 3rd.
And this was an interesting call. I mean, I know these guys work together week in and week out, but you only have 3 on pit road. If the rest of the lead cars elect to go 2 or 3 laps because they have such a much bigger group of cars together, they're going to be significantly faster than these 3 cars will be when they get back onto the racetrack, and they could end up losing a very big amount of time to the rest of this pack if they end up staying out there too much longer. And now as those guys are getting ready to finish up their pit stalls, the rest of the field's coming around to turn 4, and it looks like we have a handful more coming in. It looks like that the second place runner, Michael Cozy Jr., is going to be the first one leading him on, and about 8 or 9 more coming with him.
And that's what you expect is everybody else down pit road. And an interesting situation here because Preet side by side with Buck. You got Bowie side by side with Cozy. If your pit stall is before the guy that's on your left-hand side, you better know that. Looks like the 37 going to pull it without incident. And Michael Cozy Jr. almost overshot his stall. Really had to lock that one up to get into the box. And a big problem is the 2 of Colby Buckbrine completely missed his stall. Slid it way too deep. And he's going to have to put it in reverse and try to get it in the lines. I think he just did it successfully that time. He will, as the right side of the car is going to get jacked up, but that's a precious 8 seconds because as everybody else leaves pit road, he's still getting that Sunoco race fuel, and you can kiss that entire pack goodbye.
Yeah, unfortunately, he will be out of the lead draft, and he may even miss the second draft that we saw prior to the green flag pit stops because he's going to be out there all by himself as these guys get up to speed. He's still just trying to get off pit road as we speak. And now the rest of the field, it looks like the rest of the leaders have come to pit road. Rodney Walford, Seth DeMerchant, Michael Guerrilla, a handful of others on the pit road and trying to get into their box cleanly. They already know what happened to that number 2 machine of Colby Buck. They can't make any mistakes, and it looks like, at least at the front half of this pit stop, or pit road, none of them made any major mistakes. They're down in their pit stalls trying to get service and try to get out there as quickly as possible so they can get back into the lead pack and hopefully be a part of it. Seth DeMerchant's down and away. Looks like Guerrilla might have gotten a speeding penalty because he's still sitting in his box long after the rest of the drivers left pit road, so he's certainly going to have some issues as well, and more than likely he's not going to be a part of that lead pack either once they get up to speed.
It looked like Guerrilla made a small mistake into the box, Brian, nowhere near as major as the issue we saw with Colby Buck, but I mean 2 seconds, 3 seconds, it's still going to kill you, and Guerrilla is going to lose touch with that pack. Now look at the slow cars on the apron. That's the group that just pitted. Rodney Wofford leads the way. They were the race leaders. Look at the cars that just passed somebody outside. Those cars were racing in the same pack 5 laps ago. The short pit, the right call, Brian, because those cars were able to get back out on track and get back up to speed. Well, these cars were still slow getting through the gears back out on pit road, and the short pit going to be the winning call on that one, as everything's going to cycle through, and it should be Andrew Farinars to the race lead in this one.
The advantage to pitting in a smaller pack, like we saw Farinars, Dylan Jones, and Eberhardt do, is that you can be more aggressive getting on the pit road because you're not surrounded by 8 or 9 cars coming on the pit road. You're only around 2 or 3, so you can take a little bit longer getting on the pit road. You can take a little bit longer getting onto the brakes and be a little bit more aggressive trying to get slowed down to 55 miles an hour. And it also benefited that those 3 are teammates. They work together week in and week out. They know how each other are going to get on the pit road. They've probably practiced as a group in the practice session, so they know how each other's going to get on and off a pit road, and because of that they were able to have a pretty much flawless entry and exit to pit road. And as you said, it was the advantage that got them out in front with Brandon Bowie, I believe, Lionel Callisto, and Tommy Ryan with them as well. These 6 cars have gotten about a second advantage over them, but this isn't going to be a long-lasting thing because the rest of these guys are going to get lined up and they will chase them back down. Being as close as they are, they'll be able to suck up on that draft and get back to them.
Couple of drivers hit with penalties on that one. Colby Buck was hit with a penalty. Spencer Preet and Mike Taylor were all hit with the same penalty, and that was driving through too many pit stalls on either entry or exit. Looks like Taylor, Preet, Buck hit with the penalty on exit, and Daniel Falkenham was just hit with back flag for driving too many pit stalls on entry. No more, Brian, than 3 in or out. Race control keeping that watchful eye. So far, 4 drivers busted for that one.
And that's really hard to remember when you're coming off of the racetrack from almost 200 miles an hour. You're trying to get the car down to 55 miles an hour, and then you also have to try to find your pit stall and get in and out cleanly. It's hard to remember the 3 in, 3 out rule, and unfortunately sometimes you just have a mental lapse, and that's what happens. I've been a victim of this penalty a few times over the years where I made that mistake because I just wasn't thinking about it, and unfortunately that's probably what happened to these drivers. They were so focused on getting on the pit road cleanly, and then they just made that mishap, and unfortunately it's going to cost them. And Colby Buck was already in trouble because he had the extended pit stop for completely missing his box, so he was already in trouble, and now that was just adding to the misery.
So far, so good from Talladega. 43 laps in the works, and so far, no problems. 29 drivers still scored on the lead lap in this one. Talked about that separating of the packs a little bit. It is a 6-car breakaway, all led by Andrew Farinars. As we look to maybe settle into another green flag stretch here tonight, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and we'll keep things locked to LSRTV nonstop so you don't miss a moment of the action. You're watching LSRTV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live. live from the Talladega Super Speedway. LSRTV's coverage of the 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C, is brought to you as always by our friends at English Auto. English Auto L.L.C is a full-service luxury automobile repair center in Odenton, Maryland, conveniently located to serve both the Baltimore and D.C. markets. English Auto specializes in Jaguar, Land Rover, Mercedes, Volvo, and BMW service. Founded in 2007, English Auto is now in its 11th year of business, and with a staff that has over 60 years of combined experience in the automotive service industry, English Auto has an A+ rating for the Better Business Bureau. For more information, you can check them out online at www.englishauto.us and on social media on Facebook at facebook.com/English Auto and on Twitter at English Auto LLC. Now, title sponsor of this 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto. 48 laps now complete from Talladega Super Speedway. Evan Pasoko, Brian Immaculate upstairs with you on LSRTV at iRacing Live. And Brian, so far so good, caution free. You saw what happened though as we were away on the LSRTV non-stop. That 6-car breakaway, not quite anymore. 12 cars now total into the mix, and that second line has really all gone up top, side by side throughout. Maybe a battle for the race lead shortly.
Well, this is the point of the race where you have to start figuring out how long it's going to take the outside line to work. You don't want to wait until lap 85 or lap 90 of 99 to decide, okay, it's time to figure this out. You want to know now. That way you have a plan when you get to that point of the race and you know what you need to do. And that's exactly what I think some of these guys are doing. Rodney Walford, Seth DeMerchant out there trying to make it happen on the outside line, and they have really begun to carry that momentum to the front of the field. And at one point they were actually side by side with Andrew Freenars challenging for the race lead, and it was actually a pretty good battle they had going on, but now they're beginning to fade back just a little bit. As you see, that number 3 machine is back to the outside of Daniel Eberhardt, who's third on the bottom, but he is not giving up as he continues to pinch these guys down on the inside line and try to carry that speed to get them back to the front.
Looks like 2.5 car lengths. The advantage for the drivers on the inside. Still the 3 of Wofford, the 57 of Seth DeMerchant's up top. This time by, though, we're going to be halfway home for the Talladega Super Speedway. So let's take this opportunity to look at our iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and so many more. 50 down, 49 to go. Andrew Freenars is your race leader from Talladega. Dylan Jones tucked in line behind it in the number 2 spot. It gets a little bit dicey from here, but that time on the line, Daniel Eberhardt scored 3rd. Rodney Wofford 4th, with Brandon Bowie rounding through your top 5. That's your pole sitter. Seth DeMerchant's back in the number 6 spot. Michael Cozy Jr. 7th. Tommy Rahn is 8th. Lionel Kalisto 9th, and Austin Coop rounding out your top 10.
11th currently goes to Dwight Beverly. Then we have David Comstock in 12th position. Dwayne Vincent is running 13th. Gabriel Wood running that James Hilton tribute car. He is up to 14th, giving a good run to that car here tonight. Jeff Ward is currently in the 15th position. Then we have Nick Silver in 16th. Sean Casto is 17th. Michael Guerrilla was up front most of this race. He's fallen back to 18th. Then we have Ross Cato in 19th, and rounding out the top 20, Kyle Kamer.
21st position, Scott Walter. You're talking about now drivers 30-some-odd seconds back. Final couple of cars on the lead lap include David Washington in 22nd, Eric Stanford 23rd, Brendan Whitaker 24th, and then Shane Parrish in 25th. You might have seen a couple of cars just get lapped by your lead group. That's where we pick up the rest of the field. They've actually mixed in with the lead pack, but first car 1 lap down, P26. That's Shane Ewing. Spencer Preet is 27th, with Brian Chambliss, Colby Buck, and Galen Gidman through 30th.
31st goes to Daniel Falkingham. 32nd is Drew Adamson's. Mike Taylor is in that 33rd position, 2 laps down, and Randy Yoakum is the last car in this 34-car field. He is currently in the 34th position, and would like to remind you that this iRacing Midway Race Break has been brought to you by iRacing. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. They have a lot of different promotions going on right now. I believe they have a couple for new users only, so you can get on there and get in on the action. We have a lot of exciting racing going on with the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series cars, of course, and then we also have a lot of dirt racing going on for those guys that like dirt racing. So a lot of different options, Evan Pasoko, that these guys can get in on, and definitely something to check out. You might even be able to get in on this Full Throttle Cup Series Racing League if you'd like to.
Well, I promise you, if you've been enjoying just watching some of the plate track racing over the last couple of days on the real world side of things, on the sim, of course, we've seen and will still see plenty of Talladega. I think for the next couple of days, there's been tons of that on the service. Anytime a plate track weekend rolls around, but of course, anytime, as you mentioned, you can get a variety of different racing fixes in. So iRacing.com/membership, where you can get a look at all of those new iRacing memberships. I think up to 40% off for those new members. So if you've been looking for an excuse to jump on board, I think now is the best time to do it. We have to start to look a little bit forward now, Brian. 54 laps into this race, drivers made that first pit stop right at about a third of the way through this race. I'd say a little bit afterwards. So I'm not sure what's going to come down right at the 2/3 marker. You're going to split this race on a 2-stop call, no doubt. I don't think we're going to see everybody in within 12 laps. What would the advantage be of maybe stretching this run a little bit longer? Are you really going to save anything by maybe having to take a little bit less fuel if you go an extra 10 or so laps?
You can certainly save a little bit of fuel if you come on the pit road earlier. Once you know you're within your window to get to the end without having to pit again, you can save a little bit of time on pit road. It's not a lot, but a second or two, especially here at Talladega, especially if you have 4 or 5 cars that are all on the same strategy, that could mean quite a bit to some of these drivers. So you might see something like that happen. But the other advantage, if you get on the pit road first, is if we have that caution and you've already been to pit road and gotten your fuel, and you know you don't have to come back to get more fuel for the rest of the race, you're going to get to stay out during that caution and get a lot of track position that you might not have otherwise. So there's a few different things that are going to make these drivers think about when they want to come to pit road. Me personally, I've always been the guy where as soon as I know I'm in my window to make it to the end, I want to get on and off pit road as quickly as possible. That way, if that caution comes out, I know I get the track position and I've set myself up for a good run to the end.
Side by side for the race lead still, so it was very easy for us to tell, not only kind of factoring in, okay, a cup car can only go so many laps on fuel, but definitely when we got closer to that 1/3 distance marker, we saw that outside line disintegrate. Clearly no intentions, but the drivers up there of wanting to split this thing up anytime soon. Again, the top 12 still in this lead pack, 5 cars up on the outside of the racetrack, and look at Rodney Wofford's in a very good spot, Brian, here. If he can get the run off of turn 4, he might have a shot at this thing. The 80 to Farinar's kind of a sit and duck. He needs help from Jones, and it's not going to be there. The 3 of Wofford's in front. They decide to come down. He does. They're going to change for the race lead at lap 56. Rodney Wofford, I think first time tonight, the 3 Chevrolet to the point.
And that was the best challenge we've seen the outside line have all night long. We saw Andrew Freenarch take the lead away by a quick move coming into the trial to take the advantage away from the inside line. But that's the first time we've seen the outside line establish themselves and be able to take the race lead away from the guy on the inside line. And that was a very impressive drive. And now here comes Seth DeMerchant trying to see if he can recreate what we just saw Rodney Wofford do, but doesn't quite have the run that we saw Rodney have a lap ago, as he's got Lionel Callisto locked on his bumper trying to give him a big run. But it's not going to be enough as Freenarch gets right onto the back bumper of Wofford, and he's able to push that inside line ahead of the outside line guys. And now he's trying to maybe consider looking to the outside line. It looked like going into the trial where he was going to try to make that move once again, but he stays on the bottom, and now here comes DeMerchant back on the outside line. Now here goes Freenarch. He's making that move, goes to the outside line, pulls up in front of DeMerchant, takes away the momentum from Rodney Wofford, but it's not going to work as he was not able to establish that momentum as quickly as he would like. And now he gets the run down the back straightaway. Can he take the lead as they head to 3?
He's got the long Alabama gang back straight. It would have worked for him. We talked about timing on these moves a lot. It is key to really get that momentum coming off of the quarter. Freenarch was picture perfect the first time he pulled that one on Brandon Bowie, who has not been able to get back to the race lead since. Your pole sitter fell back to that second group after green flag pit stops and runs in 8th position right now behind the wheel of the 43 Chevrolet. But up on the outside, the 88's trying his best. He needs a little bit more from the Merchant, though, just a tap. He's only a half a foot shy of getting by Wofford, but he's not going to get it.
And unfortunately, that is such a frustrating spot to be in. You know how close you are. You've got your spotter yelling almost clear, almost clear, almost clear, but you're not clear enough to make that move. And you want to so desperately, but you know you can't, and it just gets so frustrating when you're the guy on the outside line. And sometimes that can happen 3, 4, 5 times before you finally get the momentum that you need to get dropped to the bottom of the racetrack. And unfortunately, you just have to stick it out and hope that eventually that time comes. And a lot of times what will happen is the inside line will begin to get heated up. when you're on the inside line, especially when you're double file like this, you don't really have anywhere to go to duck out of line to try to cool the air or cool the motor off when it's by getting out of the dirty air that you're in. The guys on the outside line, they can swerve high and get out of get out from behind the guy in front of them and get some cool air to the motor. They can actually keep their motors cooler longer than the guys on the bottom, and once those guys on the bottom get heated up, that's when the outside line is able to build that momentum and really start to charge to the front.
Look at the 11 and the 88 machine again. Dylan Jones going to move up from that second position. Same concept, same kind of move that Freenars wanted to make. I just don't know if you could do that with only one other car up top. The 3 of Watford went to block a little bit, and when he came back down, the tap at the back end for that 90 of Eberhard upset the 3 a little bit. I thought maybe that could have costed him enough speed to maybe allow the drivers up at the outside of the racetrack to do something. It was not, and the outside again slowly disintegrates a little bit with only a handful of drivers up there. The 11, the 88, and now the 6 of Austin Coop try to get back into the conversation. Big pickups, though, on that first side of the green flag pit service for the 22nd place starter, Austin Coop, the 20th place starter, Lionel Callisto, and the 23rd position starter, and David Comstock. All of those cars making the leap to the top 10 by making the right decision on the pit stops.
Absolutely, and they just continue to get closer and closer to the front and continue to try to put themselves into a position where they can try to get a shot at this win when we get down to it. And we're beginning to get close to that point where these drivers are going to be inside their fuel window. We saw the first cars come into pit road on lap 35, so by that number they need to have about 35 laps to go on the books. Well, they are at 39 laps to go right now, or 37 laps to go rather, so they're getting very close to that point where they can make it to the end without having to come to pit road. And I imagine we might see a handful of these guys elect to come to pit road as soon as they get inside that fuel window and try to make sure that they can go to the distance without having to worry about it. So you might see this outside line begin to fade, and it has here in the last couple of laps. Dylan Jones, Andrew Freenar are still out there with Austin Coop and David Comstock, but everybody else has begun to migrate back to the bottom, just like we saw in that first run when they got to this point of the race.
And look at the 3 machine to get a Watford. He goes up to make that block, and I get the idea in concept, go up, try to slow that lane down, but the problem is, every time you're doing that, you're coming back down, you're losing that consistent contact with a 57 at Merchant in his draft. It worked out again, but that's the second time Watford has stepped up the hill about a half a car length, and it's really gotten things a little bit unsettled when it came back down. To be fair, this is a driver who has found success on these plate tracks once or twice. You might remember him prior to this 2018 campaign for the Super Speedway Cup Series. So he knows how to get around this Talladega Super Speedway. I'll trust his judgment. I do get a little bit nervous every time I see him make that move.
Well, and the move that he's making is actually something that works. When you pull up in front of that line, you actually hurt them when you go back to the bottom of the racetrack. When they're going down the back straightaway and Rodney Wofford pulls up in front of them, he gives them a little bit of draft, and then he sucks it away, and he goes back to the bottom of the racetrack and kills their momentum. And we just saw a lead change, and it looks like we have a car spinning down on the apron. It's not on the racing surface, going to not bring out the caution. But while that was going on, Daniel Eberhard was able to take the race lead away from Rodney Wofford, and that left Dylan Jones out on the outside line all by himself, and this could be trouble for that 11 car.
He finally cleared him, go down into turn 3. That 11 Machina Jones did a really good job of pushing, and oh, look out for the contact, almost the lap car. I think that was the 82 machine, I can't quite tell. On the inside of the racetrack, it was Adamson down low, who was coming out of pit road and about pulled up in front of that lead pack of cars. Luckily, that car was able to get down and out of the way. That was a very close call up front, though, Brian. What I was gonna say is that Dylan Jones was able to find a spot down on the inside anyhow, so that was not all that big of a loss for him. There was a chance that he was going to be completely left out to dry as the only driver left on that outside line. He'll be okay, though, and find a spotted line, but if you're somebody like the 3 of Wofford, Eberhard can see that car coming up. I'm sure his heart rate got going, but he makes a move out of the way. The 3 has no clue that's going to happen until the last second, so he's very fortunate.
Well, and the 82 is in that position because of something that happened between him and Braden Whittaker going into turn 3 on that very lap. Braden was trying to get the 82 a push going into the corner. He kicked him sideways, and actually Braden ended up going hard into the outside wall. I'm very surprised we didn't see a caution right there. But as a result of all that, Drew Adamson lost a ton of momentum. He was off the pace. He was trying to get back up to speed, but he was about 20 miles an hour off the pace when Eberhard and the rest of those drivers caught him, and that's what caused all of that chaos for the race leaders. And fortunately, like you mentioned, they were able to avoid any major contact and able to get by him cleanly, and now these guys have gotten single file back at the front.
Somehow we are still green. You can get away with a lot of incidents here at Talladega as, you know, cars end up down below the yellow line and such, but I mean, that was a wreck straight up into the outside wall, and fortunately enough for that scenario, yeah, I mean, for us at least, we stay green. It is a really tough break for Whitaker though, because obviously he's on pit road with damage. If he had a yellow, it's not going to be as bad. You got, you know, that 3-4 lap grace window where you can come down pit road, get that car fixed up a little bit. You're going to get a second look at an incident now. Again, you're looking for the 82 of Adamson and the 4 of Braden Whitaker. Those are the two drivers that get checked up on one another, and it was Whitaker who went up into the outside wall. You think it might have been a yellow, but we are still clean and green from Dega.
And something else that's very interesting is these leaders have now caught another draft pack, another group of lap cars, and you can see the top 3 cars. They have picked up that draft, and as a result, they have actually pulled away from a couple of the guys behind them. Daniel Eberhardt, Rodney Walker, Seth DeMerchant, they've gapped the rest of this lead pack by about 5-6 car lengths over Dylan Jones because they have picked up the draft off of the lap cars in front of them. And this could be a little bit of a game changer for these leaders because these guys are side by side in front of them. Where do you go if you're Daniel Eberhardt now that you're there? Do you try to work your way past them? Do you fall in line behind them? What kind of move are you going to make? And now we're going to see is Eberhardt, he's going to try to go to the outside line and try to work his way past some of these lap cars, but now they all go single file on the bottom, so this could change everything.
And not that it was, you know, calm by any sense of the imagination of Brian, but even when we were side by side 10 laps ago, it didn't feel as sporadic as it does right now. I think that a couple of close calls gets the blood pumping, everybody checks up a little bit, and because we're not really stacked up in line, space opens up a little bit. Look at the outside with a big one here, not for position, but you have to keep in mind where all of this is going on. That non-emission to Eberhardt is your race leader. He's trying to get around a lot of traffic, and right now things are pretty chaotic up front. I bet you that the drivers really utilizing those spotters right now and those crew chiefs, trying to ask, who am I funning for position and who's the lap car in my way that I really don't need to worry about? Because again, those lap cars want to do everything they can to latch onto these leaders. If you're that 12 machine or Ross Cato, you're the last car on the lead lap right now. That's because the race leader's drafting on your back bumper. So he has no intentions of letting the Nani car go. And the same thing can be said for the 18 to Parrish and some of the other lapped cars that are in the mix here.
Well, and Ross Cato made a great move to put himself in the position that he's in. He saw Daniel Eberhardt and the rest of these lead cars coming and catching him, and when Eberhardt got close enough to where he could actually take advantage of it, he pulled up in front of Eberhardt and used the speed and the momentum that Eberhardt and the rest of those guys were carrying to push himself to the front of this pack and be in front of Eberhardt as the last car on the lead lap. And right now, if we got a caution, he would get to go all the way around and catch up to the tail end of the field and still be on the lead lap, where everybody else behind him, like David Washington, who's the first car lap down, he would have to take the lucky dog and he would have to go around and then get penalized to be at the tail end of the field for the restart. Right now, Ross Cato wouldn't have to worry about that. He's in the 14th position. He would get to restart 14th in line and not behind a whole bunch of lap cars. So he wants to stay right where he's at as long as he can and hope for a quick caution.
Exactly, but he's helping forward again. Rating now on that final pit stop, past 2/3 of the way from Talladega. In fact, this time by 69 laps complete and 30 laps to go. So we were talking about getting into that fuel window, Brian. We've seen a lot of drivers come down, get serviced, but a majority of that 12-car lead pack up front has yet to come down and do so. We saw last time that early pit call was the best pit call, and you can be subjective about that because at the end of the day, everybody ended up together once more. However, it was quite clear that those who pitted earlier had the momentum and were able to get back out in front sooner rather than later. So you have to wonder if somebody like a David Washington right now, first car lap down, is it all that bad off? Because we'll wait for Eberhardt to pit, who's directly in front of him. It costs you about a lap to come down pit road. The 98 machine could take over the race lead once all the service has been completed.
Yeah, but the problem is he's eventually got to make his pit stop as well, and you have to also keep in mind that he is teammates with the number 90 machine. So at this point, does he decide, okay, we're inside 30 laps to go? Do I just go ahead and try to work with my teammate to try to help him get a win, or do I try to put myself in a position where if a caution comes out, I know I have an opportunity to get back on the lead lap? So he's in a tough situation right now as a teammate to decide what he's going to do and how he's going to work this. But they're going to have to make that decision pretty soon because they're within about, I'd say, less than 5 laps from having to come to pit road for fuel. We saw the first guys start coming in around lap 65. It wasn't much longer beyond that point where we saw the rest of the field make their stop. So we should see these guys pretty soon.
Any minute now, and there it is. Look at the 98 machine get it ducked down. The 12 is also in. Eberhardt staying out from the front, But Washington's down pit road. The 12th car going to have to finally come in, so Cato's going to give up the last spot on the lead lap. Stanford, Parrish, Kamer, more names that have come down pit road, but surprisingly not the leaders that have yet to come down. That lead group that sits kind of split up now. The top three have snuck away. Eberhard, Wofford, and DeMerchant were able to better navigate that lap traffic pack that we caught up to. They're 1, 2, 3 right now. They will get caught shortly here by Bowie down through Comstock, 4th through 11th, which is the rest of that lead pack there. So this group, though, is the one we're waiting on.
I think the leaders elected to stay out because they knew that the lap cars would have to come to pit road as well, and they wanted to try to sort this thing out and thin the herd, so to speak, so that they're not all coming in at the same time. And as we come off turn 4, I thought maybe we'd see a couple more come to pit road, but that's not going to be the case. Everybody in this lead pack has gotten single file and stays on the racetrack, but the fact that they're all single file at this point tells me that we're only a couple of laps away from them all making that move. This is exactly what we saw happen right before the first round of green flag pit stops, and I think I have to say we're within a lap or two of these guys coming to pit road, and we know from this point forward they can make it to the end on fuel, so there's no concerns about that. And now the question becomes, when do they make that move, and who are they going to come with?
And you have to think that they've had enough time, green flag through 73 laps, to have a little bit of a discussion with the teammates and the cars around them as far as when we're going to come down pit road. And, if maybe somebody wants to try to break away from this pack, not liking their odds of being 1 out of 11 in the lead pack, and saying, okay, what if 3 of us or 4 of us went down pit road just to mix things up? It does certainly look like, Brian, though, that they had no intentions of pitting at that lap 66 and the 2/3 marker and are really trying to go as far as we can. You mentioned earlier that tires aren't a factor, so maybe they are trying to get as little fuel as they can left in the tank before they come down to maybe save themselves a precious second or 2, because they're not going to need a completely full tank to get to the end. There is no overtime that needs to be accounted for, so you can be very specific on your math to get to 99.
Well, that is very true, and I can tell you from being teammates with David Comstock over the years, he is very good at calculating the amount of fuel that he's going to need to come to pit road. If I was in this race with him, I would know exactly how much fuel I need to take, and I can promise you he knows exactly how much fuel he's going to be putting in that car when he comes to pit road here in the next couple of laps, and that's what all of these guys are going to be doing. You can sit there and track how much fuel you're using per lap. It's a little bit easier on iRacing than it is in real life, because we have a black box that tells us how much fuel we have left, where in the real world you don't really know how much is in the tank. You have to go off of calculations and hope that those calculations are right. Here you have an exact science, and because of that you can figure out exactly how much fuel you'll need, and that's exactly what these guys are going to be doing. And I imagine these guys are going to have some very flawless stops coming to pit road when that time comes.
Waiting game at this point. The concern is for the drivers who have already pitted and are a lap down. They don't want a yellow right now. They want that lead group to just get down pit road and get it over with. 14th through 28th. More than half of the cars in this race are 1 lap down, but are still on track. Most, if not all of them, are going to get that lap back, and Daniel Eberhard pits, Brian, all by himself for the race lead. 2 more cars come storming in. Dylan Jones and Farinars from quite a distance back, so he does have some friends, but he looked like he was going to be all on his own for a minute there.
That was calculated, but I was surprised at first because I didn't realize that Dylan Jones and Freenars were still in that main pack. I hadn't really seen them because they were at the back half of that pack, and I thought Eberhard was going to be by himself completely, but he does have help, as you mentioned. But now they have to have flawless stops down here on pit road. I don't believe any of them slid through their box. I didn't see anybody go through too many pit boxes on pit entry, so now they got to be very careful on exit. Eberhard's already down and away, as is Dylan Jones and Andrew Freenars, but Eberhard's going to be a little bit ahead of these guys, so he's going to have to check up and allow them to get caught up to him so that they can start drafting immediately once they get on the backstretch. And that little bit of time, even though it's only about 4 or 5 car lengths, that could be the difference maker right here. And now the rest of the guys on pit road: Rodney Walford, Seth DeMerchant, Bowie, and others on pit road.
And that's one of those cases as well, as you see all of those drivers come down, that it's almost beneficial to have a little bit of a slower stop. Leave with the group. You can beat the group out of pit road, but if those 3 cars get up to you in a half a lap, they're going to blow by you. So you have to find a happy median. Seth DeMerchant, one of the first drivers in, he was very careful coming into his box. Did not want to make any mistakes. He'll go 2 left side tires only, just enough fuel to get to the end. Looked like he took a lot more fuel than the 3 of Watford did, though. The 3 cars, the first in and out, but he's all on his lonesome on the way out.
As those guys get up to speed, we got a couple more drivers that are going to be making their way to pit road. Tommy Ryan, Dwight Beverly, and David Comstock, the last of your remaining leaders, coming to pit road. They've also got one more driver, and Spencer Preet coming in as well, but he is one lap down, running in 13th right now. But that's another car that adds to their draft pack when they get back onto the racetrack. So these three drivers also have to have a flawless stop on pit road. David Comstock, the first one in, and he made it very carefully into his pit box. Tommy Ryan as well. And now the question becomes 2 tires or 4. It looks like these guys are going to be taking 2 tires and a little bit of fuel, just enough to get to the finish. Comstock's down and away. Tommy Ryan had a little bit of a slow stop, but he too is now down and away. And now Dwight Beverly pulls out of his box. So these guys have a pretty good set of stops as well. Now we have to see how they blend with the rest of the field as they get up to speed.
You can see those drivers leaving the pit lane. Obviously, 4 tires lines up pretty good with a full tank of fuel. However, we talked about drivers trying to stretch it and go as little as possible. You really only need 22 laps of fuel to get to the end. Still a little bit more than half a tank for sure, but it's definitely nowhere near a full tank. So the 2-tire call, obviously, Brian, I would assume, coordinated from the beginning. Maybe drivers going with the right sides first and then just the left sides this time, or vice versa.
Yeah, you absolutely had to have a plan, and it's hard sometimes because you don't expect a race like this to go caution-free for 80 laps like we've seen, but you have to have some type of a plan before the race. Okay, if this thing goes green, this is what I'm going to do. If we have cautions, this is what I'm going to do. You have to have a plan for every scenario, and that's exactly what these guys did. But the one thing that is very interesting to me right now, Evan Pasoko, look at who is going to assume the race lead. Rodney Walford, Seth DeMerchant, and then look behind them. There is nobody behind them. These guys had incredible pit stops, and even though David Comstock, he's back there about a second and a half off of them, about a second off of them. He has no drafting help right now. Dwight Beverly and Tommy Ryan are several car lengths behind him, almost a full second behind him, and they're more than likely going to blow by that 42 machine. This thing, while I believe Brandon Bowie, who is 4.5 seconds behind him, I believe he'll catch up, but it's going to take him an awful long time to get there, and it could put these guys in the catbird seat to have a chance to win this thing.
And now the question becomes, are we set up for the end, or are people going to lose their minds just in the nick of time? Because we are, this time by, going to be with 20 laps to go. The 3, Rodney Watford and Seth DeMerchant in front by a second. Back to David Comstock, who's probably going to drop back to Dwight Beverly, Tommy Ryan 2 seconds back. That 3-car tandem probably going to group up with the group that is Bowie through Bowie through Farinars, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on track. And I think that 7-car pack or so is going to catch up to Rodney Watford and Seth DeMerchant. But we are good on pit stops to the end. It is a race down at the checkered flag here from Talladega. So we'll take one more opportunity to step aside, go LSRTV non-stop as we see if that 2nd and 3rd group can catch up. And then we'll race uninterrupted to the end here from Lincoln, Alabama. You're watching a Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. And your home for sim racing and iRacing live. Watford leads with 20 laps to go.
So obviously you guys have come from the virtual world to reality. What do you think about a sim racer coming in the real world? What were your expectations coming in?
Coming from iRacing, a computer program basically down here to a real world scenario where you got all these guys with all these years and years and years and years of experience that are also using iRacing as a tool to come out and run against those guys and beat them and finish ahead of them and show them, there's a thing or two you might be missing is fantastic. I mean, that's a skill that I know I don't have, and I can appreciate it because I'm terrible at iRacing.
Glenn was able to come into the team. We did a lot of preseason testing, actually a full season's worth of testing before we even started the season. And he came in, there was a lot of sectors that he was the fastest guy out of our team. And Sparky and I are looking at data, trying to catch up to him through some turns. And of course, some places Sparky will be the fastest or I'll be the fastest, and Glenn is able to learn from, what we're doing and vice versa. So it was excellent to see his pace right off of the bat, and speed was never a worry. It's about qualifying well. Qualifying is very difficult, and pretty important in this series. And so is, being able to make effective passes without contact. It's very difficult to pass in these cars, so, it's not easy being here.
I think the level of ultra competitiveness in here, where when normally when you make a pass, you're making a pass with 2 cars involved. But if we're making a pass in this series, you have to remember there's 5 cars waiting behind you. If you mess up that pass, they're going by you.
Yeah, it's
So-
like sharks.
Yeah, you're surrounded by sharks. But no, it's been I've been very surprised and very pleased with it. And obviously, I have the 2 champions I'm sitting between. John actually statistically is the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world. He owns every record that you would want, none of the bad records.
Maybe some of them. I don't know. I haven't
Maybe
looked at
some of
the
those.
records.
And Sparky's one of the quickest guys in the paddock, and obviously the champion now. So I couldn't have picked a better team to be with 6 Sideways. I'm looking at what everybody in the paddock calls gold. I mean, they will pay to look at John and Sparky's data, and I get full access to it. And I get to see where I'm doing well and see where I can improve. And I've been really pleased with my progress.
Back live from the Talladega Super Speedway. It has been full throttle pace tonight in the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C, powered by our friends at English Auto. Give a shout out to them. Also want to give a big thanks to our friends over at Joel Real Timing for being a sponsor of tonight's coverage. Whether you spend your time at the iRacing service behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is your go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself the basic download for free or buy the full pro version today by logging on to joel-real-timing.com for more information. Official timing sponsor of LSRTV. Without yellow and so far without the fireworks, Brian Backlund, it has been a very technical race from Talladega Super Speedway. Some pit strategy sprinkled in here and there, some team gamesmanship, and it has all put us in a position with 14 laps to go at a 2-car breakaway. Rodney Watford, Seth the Merchant 1 and 2, but they have a friendly face right behind them in Spencer Preet as well. A lapped car that is helping them weather a 3-second advantage against what is a 7-car pack that's trying to catch him 3rd through 10th. Right now out of the picture, trying to make up a little bit before the time runs out.
Well, it's worth noting that Rodney Walford, Seth the Merchant, and Spencer Preet are teammates, and they are working together. And while Spencer Preet is the first car 1 lap down, I think he's realized at this point, without the help of a caution, he's not really going to be a factor in this race, not going to have an opportunity to win. So why not try to help your teammates have an opportunity to win this thing? And it's working. However, David Comstock and the rest of these guys back there just chewed in about 0.3 of a second. They need to do that multiple laps in a row in order to get close enough. And once they get within about a second of that lead pack, if they can get a little bit of a sniff of their draft, they'll be right there and have an opportunity. The problem is they're running out of time. We're down to just 13 laps to go. They need to do this in the next 6 or 7 laps in order to have any type of chance to race those guys and have a shot at the win.
And that's all you want at Talladega. If you can weather, I think this is a different kind of a Talladega storm, Brian. Typically, if I say you weather the Talladega storm, I'm thinking Rex cars upside down, and a lot of restarts and a lot of chaos. But I think that if you've played your cards right, and you are in a position to just fight for the win this late in the race, you've got to be pretty happy with yourself. Obviously, Watford and Merchant, with help from Preet, they are going to try to work together, and they have the 2 and the 17 there. Guerrilla in the picture, along with Colby Buck. Not the same kind of teammates as those top 3 are, but I think that they're working towards the same goal. The 2 and the 17 do not want to get caught by that second group of cars, so it's really a 5-car pack. Only 2 of them are on the lead lap, and I think that if you took everybody out of the equation besides Watford and Merchant, they would have gotten caught by now. But those extra cars are critical here for allowing Watford and Merchant to stay up front. They would really like to decide this amongst the 2 of them instead of having a 10-car scrap.
Oh, absolutely. Having that extra couple of cars back there is going to keep these guys in the front and probably keep them from ever being caught, because we actually saw that gap begin to go back up. David Comstock had gotten it down to 2.7 seconds. Well, it's back up to 3 seconds now, and unfortunately, with just over 10 laps remaining, you're not going to chew into 3 seconds without some serious help, and more than likely that help's going to have to come in the form of a caution. And judging off of the trend that we've seen in this race so far, a caution is not likely and more than likely not going to happen at all. So you're basically just sitting here logging laps and hoping, and at some point I have a feeling these guys are going to say the heck with it, and they're going to go after it and just try to get some positions and see what they can get for this thing.
The single file up front. Obviously, if it comes down to just two teammates, DeMerchant can either not move and just stay on the bumper or step at a line at the last minute. And of course, both of those cars going to be guaranteed to get across the line. It'll be 10 to go next time. Carefully watching the times. Rodney Wofford with a 48.667. David Comstock with a 48.907. So that lead group with less cars, majority of which are a lap down faster than that second pack. And I think at some point right now, Comstock, Bowie, Kalisto, Eberhardt, Freenars, Jones, Beverly, and Ryan, they're being friendly at the moment, Brian, because they all want to catch up to that lead group, so they're single file. Eventually, they're going to realize if the trends remain as they are now, hey, listen, we're not going to get these guys. We got to fight for what we can amongst ourselves. Once that point breaks out, they start going 2 and 3 wide back there. You never know what could happen, but that's when they throw in the towel. Not quite yet, but if we get to 5 to go and they're still nearly 4 seconds back, I think it turns to that.
Yeah, these guys at some point, as you mentioned, are going to stop being as patient with one another, and they're just going to say the heck with it and go after what they can get, which right now is third through about the 7th position or so, or third through about 10th rather. So there's still quite a few positions up for grabs for those drivers, and the opportunity to try to steal a couple of spots and a couple of points, that's something that could be very critical. And now that wins don't get you into the playoff like they did last year, that extra couple of points could be the difference maker when we get down to it at the end of this regular season to get into the playoffs. So these guys have to be thinking about that as we get closer to the end of this race. This is an easy opportunity to try to steal a couple of points. So definitely going to try to stay with each other for a few more laps, but I'm like you, at 5 laps to go, if I'm in this pack, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it up and see what I can get.
5 laps to go is also a pretty good number because that's basically the point of no return. It might be 4 to go at a racetrack the size of the Talladega Super Speedway, but we mentioned earlier when we were talking about some of the fuel strategy that there is no need for any sort of variables into your fuel calculations. You just have to get enough fuel to get to lap number 99. Well, if we got a yellow with 4 laps to go or less, this race is not going to restart. It will end under caution flag conditions. So that is essentially our first point of no return, and if we get inside of 4 laps to go, then you're racing to the white, and then you're racing to the checkered.
And as far as racing to the checkered, it's going to come down to just Rodney Wofford, Seth DeMerchant right now, and this is a little bit of an interesting situation because if you're Spencer Preet, you know you got 2 teammates in front of you, you're a lap down. You have no real factor in this race other than the fact that you're helping your teammates have a shot at the win. If Seth DeMerchant pulls out to go for it, do you help him or do you help Rodney Wofford? He's in a very precarious situation, and one that truthfully, if I'm in this race, I don't want to be in that situation, and I almost think I'd prefer be the 4th car in line so I don't have to be the one to make that decision.
And it's also tricky, and it kind of comes down to the age-old question. The dynamic around this plate track racing, Brian, has significantly changed in recent years. Of course, with the transition to the Gen 6 and the current iteration of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series car that we run in this Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, the fact that that 2-car tandem just doesn't exist like it used to be. It used to be 2 cars could get hooked up, and you'd have a lot of sets of 2 racing to the end, and the question would be, well, do you want to be in front or do you want to be behind? Would you rather block or would you rather go to make the move? Part of that is still true. If you're up front...
we have a wreck in turn 1. Brandon Bowie got turned sideways by Daniel Eberhardt. He was trying to make the move to go around David Comstock, and he got kicked sideways, but somehow he hangs on to that car. Sorry, Evan Pasoko, for cutting you off, but that was a big moment for Bowie, and it really split up this second pack. Bowie's going to fall out of the draft and is unfortunately not going to be a factor in this thing, but we stay green here at Talladega.
We were just saying at 5 to go, Brian. It happened at 6 to go. They were not single file anymore. When that happened, they started to realize that they were losing too much time to your race leaders, decided to fight it out amongst themselves, and they nearly wrecked themselves because of it. So that's exactly what we were seeing, and it's going to spread things out. It's going to open things up. So the best racing right now is going to be back in that secondary pack right now, side by side for 5th.
And what a great battle this has become all of a sudden. That little bit of a mix-up with Brandon Bowie has caused these guys to get racy. It's the best racing we've seen in quite a while. Comstock's on the bottom with Kalisto trying to make something happen. You've got Freenars out on the outside line. He's leading with Dylan Jones and Daniel Eberhardt. Team cars on the outside line working together to try to pick up a couple of spots. We've gotten to that point of the race at 5 laps to go now where we're not going to have a caution to bring these guys back together and have a restart. So now everything has to happen. You don't have any opportunities to go for the race win.
And it's almost a shooting yourself in the foot kind of scenario. Is you have to pick and choose when it's worth it, when it's not, and a lot of the times it's a lot easier said than done in a race like this to just settle down a little bit. Lap number 95 of the works, still without a caution from Talladega. A couple of incidents, two ones that could and possibly triggered a yellow flag, and neither of them did. And the next time by, we're going to come around to lap number 96 and take 4 laps left to go. That's the point to no return. You get there, and there are not going to be any restarts in this race for sure.
And this has been a great battle back here for these guys. Not a whole lot going on at the front. You still got Rodney Wofford, Seth the Merchant single file with a couple of lap cars behind them to keep them at bay. And right now, this has been the best racing we've seen. And now the inside line has actually begun to kind of form up once again as Comstock is in line behind Andrew Freenars. He pulls out to the outside. Here comes Lionel Callisto to go with him. And they're going to try to slingshot around Andrew Freenars. This is the move that Freenars made for the lead earlier in the race. It's now going to work against him as Comstock's got the run. Will he jump to the inside line or will he stay out there with Callisto? He's going to go to the bottom to take that third position away.
Callisto at a 97, and he's left out to dry a little bit. Only 2 cars up at the outside as the 11 of Dylan Jones works with him. The 90 car, Daniel Eberhardt, thought about going high. He'll tuck back down to the inside, so it's 5 at the bottom of the racetrack and 2 on the top side of the racetrack. Things developing up front as well. The 2 and the 17, the lap cars that were at the tail end of that 5-car train, don't want to go single file anymore, and there goes the teammate. Preet's got to come down to get fuel. So they're starting to lose some numbers up front, Brian. I think that's going to be too little too late. That second pack has already fallen into anarchy, and they're now 6 seconds off of the lead group, but things are getting a little bit disjointed up front now inside of 4 to go.
Yeah, just 4 cars in that lead pack, and now Spencer Preet's not going to be able to make that decision to help one of his teammates, and that probably works best for him because he's going to make one happy and one mad if he has to make that decision. But those 2 now have to decide over the next 3 laps how they're going to work it out, and really this comes down to what Seth the Merchant wants to do. How long is he going to wait before he tries to make that move? You have to wonder now, is Colby Buck going to go with him, or is Michael Guerrilla going to try to go with him? And if you make that move, how long does it take before it stalls out? So a lot is going to be thought about between these 2 drivers over the next 3 laps, and it's going to be very exciting to watch.
This time by 2 laps to go. Kind of waited on the move to come for the guys up front. That second pack has gone single file. Comstock 3rd, Freenars 4th, Beverly 5th, with Ryan, Eberhardt, Jones, and Callisto 6, 7, 8, and 9 in the running order. Obviously, that pack is going to get a little bit out of control in this last lap, but I'm curious, Seth the Merchant, how loyal is he going to be to Rodney Wofford? Does he stay on the bumper? Does he go to the outside at any point? And if he does make the move, caution! This race is over! Not gonna make it to the white flag, wrecking behind, and it is Eric Stanford in the 19 car, 22nd position. Got a little bit out of hand and some 3 wide, and we are done.
And that was almost 4 wide at one point. It looked like the 32 of Shane Ewing was going to try to make it happen, but 3 wide gone wrong. Like you said, there was the number 19 of Eric Stanford. The number 77 machine was also in there as well. And then Austin Coop was down on the bottom. Michael Cozy Jr. just got kind of pancaked between the 2 of them, and that's going to bring out our only caution of the night. And now we don't get to find out how that move was going to happen. I was very excited to see what Seth the Merchant was going to do, but what an incredible drive for these 2 teammates to run through this race caution free for the entire thing. And it comes down to a set of green flag pit stops where they're able to gap the rest of the field. We had 15 cars in the main pack until that green flag pit stop, Evan Pasoko, and these 2 drivers figured out a way to master the pit stops and get ahead far enough to where they didn't have to worry about racing with them and could settle it between the 2 of them.
You almost have to feel bad at all of that for Seth the Merchant because he was being a good teammate all the way through, and I was speculating that were we going to see him make a move, I feel like he would have tried at least something. Could have been a very innocent move per se, you know, dive out at the last second, try to steal it from him, but he definitely wasn't going to make a move, I think, Brian, that would have jeopardized both of those cars being able to finish this race. And unfortunately for him, well, he was probably going to wait to the last lap to make that move. Instead, he's going to have to pace with a look at the back bumper bumper to Rodney Wofford like he had seen for quite some time. And he's not even going to be allotted the opportunity to try to make that dart outside. So this race will not go green throughout. A caution flag with about 3.5 miles left in total distance. Just shy of the white flag is going to mean that at a slow to pace, Rodney Wofford, who used his teammates to play the strategy game to the T, is going to come slowly across the line, albeit, but he'll win tonight from Talladega. In the Real Sim Racing Cup Series, it is Rodney Wofford's night from Lincoln, Alabama. He gets the job done. Your winner this evening from Talladega Superspeedway. Great run for the 3-car.
A great run for the 3-car and a great run for all of these drivers that managed to go 98 laps without a caution. That is absolutely incredible. And that's also something that when we talk to our top 3 here tonight, I'm very interested to see what they think about that, because running almost 100 laps around this track caution-free is very, very physically demanding, and it can be grueling at times, and be very interested to see how these drivers feel after running that long without a break.
Rodney Wofford's going to enjoy some quick donuts and would like an opportunity to catch his breath. You're right. Drivers, I'm sure, don't like races that have tons of yellow flags and tons of restarts, but when you have literally no chance to just stretch out the fingers or anything, I'm sure it can get pretty tense, and the drivers are roughing up Rodney Wofford's car, which was otherwise pretty picture-perfect. Look at it, giving him some congratulatory bumps as he paces around the racetrack at the end here.
Yeah, just giving him a few little fender rubs there to say congratulations on a great race. And like you said, that was a flawless looking car until the pace lap. But a great run by these guys. He's going to come around here and do a couple of burnouts and get to celebrate a big victory here at Talladega. And this is a track that you always want to come to and win at. There's so much history at this track, and it's just always a fun place to come to. So you got to be very excited for that 3-car getting the victory here tonight.
He's going to have some fun on the front straightaway, and as he makes his way down to Gatorade Victory Lane, we'll take one more opportunity to step aside. And when we come back, the LSRTV post-race show going to be in full swing. We'll talk with your top finishers and get you set for another night of Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series action, because we're back again next Monday night. Dover, next race on the calendar. But Rodney Wofford is your winner tonight from Talladega. We'll talk with him on the other side. You've been watching LSRTV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C. on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live.
Hi, I'm Ryan Priest. I'm driving the number 20 JGR Toyota Xfinity car this weekend. Really great opportunity here at New Hampshire at my home track. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been on iRacing, practicing a little bit here and there with the modified and the NASCAR Xfinity car, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great tool for me to kind of get used to that stock car body again and be prepared for the race today. Well, yeah, it's a mile long, so the draft kind of plays into effect here with the modifieds. Punches a big hole in the air, and we run restrictor plates. So it makes a big difference. Just really fast, and it's our Daytona. So that's what's great about it, and we have a fast car for tomorrow. I think the biggest thing is they're heavier cars. The tire's a lot different. And the way you go about setting them up is a lot different. They use all 4 tires more than a modified, where we typically drive off the right rear, you know, so. Well, actually, it's funny. I raced NASCAR race in 2003 before iRacing came about. And then when iRacing came about, my friend Kevin Iannarelli, who works at iRacing, kind of told me, hey, man, you need to switch over to this. And when I did, I was like, oh, my God, this is like real life. So I started using it as a tool of mine to really prepare for modified races, whether it was Stafford or Thompson or Loudon, Bristol, and then obviously the Xfinity Series last year, going to road courses, trying to get laps, and use it as a tool that can get me as prepared as I could be without actually doing it. So it's been great.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing L.L.C. and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from a calm Talladega Super Speedway as we welcome you back into the LSRTV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. 8 races now complete in our 2018 campaign, and it is Rodney Wofford, latest driver, to punch his name into the list of winners. We have had now 5 different race winners in the last 5 weeks of action here on Monday nights, but we'll go trackside and get post-race reaction following tonight's Talladega race that saw only one yellow come out, coming to the white flag as Wofford paces across the start-finish zone. We'll get reaction in a moment, but first, as always, we look top to bottom at tonight's LSRTV full race results. Wofford gets the win from 7th position, Seth the Merchant position to maybe make a move forward at the end. The teammates stuck together. The Merchant will have to swallow that one and come home in second at the end of the evening. David Comstock cracks the top 3. All 3 of those drivers will be with us momentarily. Andrew Farina is 4th, and Dwight Beverly rounds out your top 5. Continuing through the top 10, Tommy Ryan, Daniel Eberhardt, Dylan Jones, Lionel Callisto, and then pole sitter Bowie in that 10th spot.
Michael Cozy Jr. finishes in the 11th position here tonight. Sean Casto comes home in 12th, and Gabe Wood, running that very special tribute to James Harvey Hilton, he comes home in the 13th position. A great run for him here tonight. Dwayne Vincent comes home in the 14th spot. Jeff Ward will finish 15th. A very quiet night for the number 89 machine here tonight. Nick Silver comes home 16th, and he was the last driver to finish on the lead lap. Not something you talk about much at Talladega, is just 16 cars finishing on the lead lap, but that was the case here tonight. Michael Guerrilla finishes in 17th. Ross Cato comes home in 18th. David Washington finishes 19th, and rounding up the top 20, Shane Parrish finishes 20th.
Continuing on through 21st position in this one, Austin Coop. Again, a lot of these drivers stuck a lap or 2 down just based on how all of the pit strategy worked out this evening. 22nd position is Scott Walter. 23rd for Shane Ewing. Kyle Kamer 24th, and Spencer Preet rounds out your top 25. He's also the last car 1 lap down. 2 laps down will take us all the way through 29th. It's Colby Buck, Daniel Falkenham, Drew Adamson, and Brian Chambliss, and an Eric Sanford comes home 30th, down 3.
Mike Taylor comes home in the 31st position, 3 laps down. The rest of these drivers had an early exit from the race. Galen Gidman finished about 11 laps down in the 32nd position, was involved in that wreck that did not bring out a caution earlier on. Braden Whittaker also had some issues. He finishes 33rd, 38 laps down, and Randy Yoakum finishes off this 34-car field. Exited very early in this race and unfortunately takes home the last position. But what a great race we saw here tonight. Mr. Evan Pasoko, 1 caution comes with just 3.5 miles left in this thing, and Rodney Walford was the beneficiary, and you're down in victory lane with that number 3 machine.
Somebody who is very familiar with victory lane from Talladega Super Speedway, Rodney Wofford, your winner tonight in the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC. Congratulations, Rodney, on that W. No yellows really in this one until the end. I kind of feel hard-pressed to say that one even counts. I know Seth might have tried something at the end, but you and him worked so good after that final pit stop to the end. Just tell us what it took to start up front and stay up front in a race that really drivers struggled to nail the strategy, unlike you. You guys got it perfect.
Yeah, I PM Seth before the race. I was like, you racing? He's like, yeah. And I said, all right, well, we'll stack them up, run them together, and do our strategy all night. And that's what we did. We just stayed hooked up the entire race. We ran the outside when we had to. Middle part, we got separated on our pit stops with our group, and we lost the pack. It was like a 1.5 seconds. And once we got there, I was just too impatient. So I had to make a move, go up the outside, and get a lot of side draft and try to slow the inside down and make something happen. And we did. And I think it was just me and Seth up there at the end where I got the lead back again. And man, it's awesome to come back out here after having no internet 3 Monday nights in a row and get the win.
Talked about how you've seen this racetrack a time or two, Seth, as well in that mix. I know Spencer was working with you at the end as well. The competition is something that we've talked about a lot in recent years in this Real Sim Racing Cup Series, how difficult it is to be fast and be fast on a consistent basis. Did you feel like coming into tonight that however many laps that you've done over your career at this racetrack and your experience on plate tracks that gave you an upper hand and really gave you a good shot at getting the checkered in this one, or was it a toss-up like any other week?
Oh, I totally thought it gave me an upper hand. I knew I had a good shot. I say I'm decent at these plate tracks. I've learned to get some wins here and there, as you know of, as everybody knows. So, yeah, I'd say it gave me an upper hand and let me know how to do it. But with this particular build and it being single file nonstop, it's just so hard to make anything work. You have to kill runs, pretty much just door people and completely brake check to make runs. You can make them work, but it's just hard. I'm really hoping here in June when we get the new tire model that something will happen with the new draft packages, make the plate tracks a lot more interesting, more side by side, door to door. But yeah, it worked out great. And the upper hand, it worked awesome.
Obviously, going forward, you guys got to win. It's, a big momentum booster, obviously. I think the teamwork stuff really worked out well. So we look forward now, and we've had this streak of very difficult racetracks, but Dega was obviously different. Before this, it was all the short tracks. Martinsville, Bristol, to Richmond. We kind of get back into the mix with that. Dover going to be the only regular season race we have for the next month. A couple of weeks off, an all-star race mixed in there, and we'll close the segment out in Charlotte at the start of June. So Dover, really the big objective next. What's the game plan into that one?
I'm really excited for Dover. I've loved that track. It's an awesome track. It's very unique. You're pretty fast and you're going down those corners really quick and hard on the brakes. And we got low downforce, so we're going to be sliding around and pushing the nose a lot. So hopefully I can get my hot lapping down and put this thing toward the front, keep track position, and go out there and win. That's what we want to do. That's what we're going to try to do, Evan.
You guys did exactly that tonight. Did we wish you the best of luck going into next Monday, Ronnie? Before we let you jet, sponsors, shout-outs, anybody you want to say hi to for making that 3-car go so fast?
First off, got to thank you up here in the booth. Do a fantastic job. Awesome. Cisco, everybody here at RSR, man, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Family and friends watching, thank you guys. Huge shout-out to Seth and the crew working together all race, bringing it home 1-2.
Race winner tonight from Talladega. Ronnie, we always appreciate your time post-race. Congratulations on the win, and we'll catch you next Monday night. Maybe we'll chat again there. Best of luck.
All right, I sure hope so, Evan. Y'all have a good one.
You looked awfully good tonight. Ronnie Wofford is your race winner from the Talladega Super Speedway. A lot of that due in part to the great help from Seth the Merchant, who came home second in this one. Never got a shot at the win. Still a great result for the driver of the 57, and trackside with him is Brian.
Caught up down here with second place finisher Seth DeMerchant. Seth, you were about 3.5 miles away from your opportunity to go for the victory when the caution came out to spoil your opportunity. First of all, awesome job working with Rodney, getting that great pit stop there to get you guys out in front ahead of the rest of the pack. But what was going through your mind in those closing laps prior to that caution coming out?
Honestly, we were just kind of riding there. I think we were just going to finish the way we were running, trying to just keep that gap that we built up over the rest of the field, because we had less cars than them. So just trying to keep the gap and hope to get past 5 to go, so the caution wouldn't end it, and just it all worked out.
So coming off turn 4, if that thing stayed green all the way to the checker flag, were you going to make the move on Rodney, or were you content running in second behind him and letting him get the victory?
I was kind of just content trying to help Rodney out there. He had helped me all race, and just good teamwork leading up to that. The pit stop that we had, we saw the guys that are behind us, Eberhardt and their team, they all pitted, and we kind of just reacted the next lap off of them, and we saw that they didn't really get connected together. It seemed like pretty good, because we came out of the pits way ahead. Or I don't know if they took 4 tires or what happened, but we just came out with like an 8-second lead, only had 2 cars, and just picking up all the lap cars we could, trying to get together with Michael. We got Coop there for a bit, and then we got Spencer and all them helping us out, and just manage the gap.
How challenging was it running almost 100 laps straight without an opportunity to slow down, with no caution until the very end of this thing? Had to be mentally and kind of emotionally grueling at times too, because you don't get the opportunity to get a reset where you slow things down and just take a break for a second. How hard is that for you guys as a driver?
Honestly, it's just more frustrating, because just the way the draft model is right now, it's so hard to pass, and if you lose any spots at all, it's just it's going to take a long time just to make it back up, because everybody's just content really just staying in line there until the ends. But luckily we were out of that, and we were able to just bring it home, but just more frustrating than anything.
Well, Seth, before we let you go, sponsor shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you on that machine?
Just Peterson Navigation for being on the car, and Rod Flag for sponsoring us to run in the league.
Well, congratulations on your second place finish here tonight at Talladega, Seth. We look forward to seeing you next week at Dover.
Thank you.
That was Seth the Merchant. He finishes second here tonight. A great pit stop with his teammate gets him into that second place finish. Now I'm going to slide over and talk to our third place finisher, Mr. David Comstock. David, I've been friends with you for a long time. This is going to be fun. First of all, congrats on your third place finish. And second of all, take us through your night.
Well, we started close to the back. Thought I ran a decent qualifying line, and apparently I didn't. Got the wind wrong, and qualified 2/10 off what I did in practice. So just try to be on offense all night and try to make sure I was clean on pit stops. And I'm glad we had green flag pit stops because I was able to hustle the car in onto pit road better than a lot of others. And I think that helped make up a lot of time to get us up through the field as the pit cycles happened. So that last pit stop put just enough fuel in to get to the end, and was able to kind of gain some time and about able to keep up with the leaders there, Rodney and Seth, but I just couldn't tag along with the draft. They just pulled me too much. So just had to settle with third and had to fight to hang on to it too.
Yeah, that was a great battle you guys had back there. And how frustrating was it when you guys were in line trying to gain on the leaders, but you just couldn't quite get there? And how hard was it for you guys to just stay content running single file, trying to run down the leaders before you finally made that move to go double file and race it out for those positions?
Well, the two behind me are kind of like satellite teammates for us. So I was working with them. We're trying to just do everything we can to just catch those two guys, and they were by themselves for a little bit. We ran them down like maybe half a second, and then they caught up with a group, and it evened out, and then they started pulling us. So I was trying everything from trying to lift out a little bit to make sure Boo is staying packed on me, to keep him pushing me and keep the momentum rolling, to just letting it play out and flow out as far as how the draft rubber band pushes me forward, and then I stall back to him, and it happens again. So it just came down to where those that were toward the back, they wanted try to make the moves they needed to make to advance their positions and get all they can get, because since it was only going to be up to third, they was trying to get around us, and we blocked all we could to try to stay ahead of him, and just had to run him up the track. Really just had to run up the track and stall the momentum out, because if you just go straight to the bottom and just you're one or two cars on the bottom, and they had I don't know how many lined up on the top, they're gonna have more cars, they're gonna prevail. So
absolutely. And after a couple of weeks of short track racing and now a super speedway, we finally go to a little bit of a different track, going to Dover, the Monster Mile. What's your thoughts going into that track and how you have to approach that race compared to a race like tonight here at Talladega?
Well, you can have a bit more control of your destiny because it's not plate racing. So depends on how the setup drives. Hopefully it's on the looser side for myself. I mean, I don't mind it being tight, but I prefer it being looser. And it's a very, very much so of a rhythm track. So hitting your marks and just taking care of your tires on that place, and just staying out of trouble, because it doesn't matter where you're at with how, even though it's a mile track, you kind of get that short track feel a lot of times, because you can kind of get that conveyor belt of cars going around the track. So if you're not careful, you can get caught up in something not your own doing there too. So just looking for clean runs, just trying to bust off top 5 finishes all the way out to the end of the chase to try to get myself back up in the points here.
Well, we congratulate you on your third place run here tonight. But before we let you go, Mr. Comstock, sponsors, shout outs, who makes it happen for you on the 42 machine?
Everybody at Aftermath Motorsports, their support for allowing me to come over here and run the leagues here with myself and Brandon Whitaker, and Caribou Racing, teammates on here with the league. Thanks for their help all night long. Gary Mercer Trucking, RacingBids.com. Haven't had a chance to feature them. They're on Bowie's car as well now. If you guys have anybody has racing memorabilia, stuff like that, they want to go sell, you can post it up for bids on RacingBids.com. Make a little extra cash of your racing memorabilia that you want to sell. Moss Energy, JD Lair, JDR Graphics for painting my cars every week. And Hick and Jix, EJ Brakes, all the friends and fans and family watching, thank you guys.
Well, congratulations on your run here tonight, Mr. Comstock. We'll see you next week in Dover.
Thank you.
He finishes third here at Talladega, having to come through the field to get to that point, and comes home with a good finish. But Evan Pasoko, what an incredible night this was here tonight. If we had talked about it prior to the race and we said our only caution was going to come on lap number 98 of 99, I think we both probably would have said that was crazy to even think that it was possible. But that's exactly what we saw here tonight. And these guys were so methodical through everything, from the pit stops to the strategy on the track and off the track. It was just insane what these guys were able to do through this race.
And I was even careful, through our first pit stop about talking about the strategy, because if we go way back to the start of this race, Brian, talking about track position, restarts and all of that is what Talladega is known for. That's how you make up the spots. If a race doesn't have a yellow, track position is huge. But I didn't really want to go too deep into that because it's Talladega. We're going to have yellows. We're going to have wrecks. We're going to have restarts. We got through the first bit of pit stops, okay, and a little bit dicey. You get to the second set of pit stops, there's 20 laps to go. The tricky thing about this race, and this racetrack, I think specifically, Brian, is we could have gone 70 laps without a wreck and still had 9 yellows. That's Talladega. So you never know when it's going to break out. Unfortunately, it comes out at 2 laps to go. I'm sure that secondary group would have liked to fight it out. I still think Seth the Merchant might have tried something on Rodney Wofford. I think the 3 machine was in a pretty good spot to get the win either way. But at the end of the day, Talladega, 1 yellow. Nothing to complain about on that. Good luck getting 1 yellow at Dover in 1 week's time, because we continue the rough and tough on tracks. It has been a brutal month and a half for the drivers of this Full Throttle Racing Cup Series, and a Monster Mile is up next on Monday night.
And you're absolutely right about that. It has been a very brutal month and a half. The last time these guys went to a track that wasn't too brutal on them was Fontana, all the way back at the beginning or middle of March. So these guys definitely are looking forward to getting away from this stretch. They got one more race before they finally get back to a track that's not quite as hard on them. That's going to be the All-Star race. So that's going to be a little bit of fun too. Then we go to Charlotte, Michigan. Then we're going to go back to another one that's going to be kind of fun. We're going to our first road course of the season. I'm looking forward to that one. Road courses are always some of my most exciting, or my most favorite tracks to go to, and I look forward to us seeing what these guys are able to do out there in the desert here in a few weeks. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And of course, the good news is, as we wrap things up tonight from Talladega, you don't have to wait a week to catch more live sim racing action right here on LSRTV and iRacing Live. We'll be back at it this Wednesday with the CEA Dirt Series, continuing into that brand new series on Wednesday night until that action begins just past 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays. Of course, doubleheaders on Saturday nights, the Bootleg Racing League Outlaw Modifieds at 9, the USR Trucks at 10 o'clock, and then the CEA Trucks on Sunday, that one at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll be back with more Real Sim Racing Cup Series action the following Monday. If you want a full look at our upcoming broadcast schedule, you can go to our website at www.livesimracing.com and get a full forecast, if you will, of what is to come here on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live. But the best way to stay up to date with us, get updates all day long, post-race interviews, and so much more. Follow us on social media. Give us a like at facebook.com/LSRTV official, and follow us on Twitter at LSRTV for more information. Until next time, though, on behalf of the entire team at Live Sim Racing L.L.C., for the folks behind the scenes, DJ Lyon, Laura Lawson, everybody who's up in the broadcast booth night in and night out who makes the show roll, and of course, for your team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, Brian Macklin, and our producer, Cisco Scaramuso, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Rodney Wofford, a first win for him on the season, 5th different race winner in the last 5 weeks of contest. The series will return for race number 9. That's next Monday, May the 7th, from Dover International Speedway. That race and every race of the 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto LLC, can be found right here at LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Until next time, good night from Talladega.